Hi there, welcome to Floating in Dreams. This is eyeshadow palette month, and today I'm sharing with you my top 10 favorite eyeshadow palettes for fair skin. Welcome to everybody watching today. Thank you so very much for joining me. This month I am doing daily videos all about eyeshadow palettes, and I thought it was time to update you on my favorite palettes for fair-skinned folks. So without further ado, we're just gonna get stuck in because I have 10 palettes to share with you today. Before we get into the video, maybe good to know who I am if you've never been here. My name is Micah. I have fair skin myself, as you can see. I lean neutral to cool, you could say, and that definitely influences how I feel about makeup. So if that's something you're interested in, then I do hope you'd like to consider subscribing. It may also be good to know that eyeshadow palettes feature regularly here on the channel. I review them, I talk about them a lot, so I hope that's something you're interested in. And if you want to see more of that, then I hope you'd like to consider subscribing. So 10 eyeshadow palettes that I think are perfect for fair skin is what we're going to be talking about this video today. I will have some links in the description box down below. Some of those will be shopping links that are affiliated. So if you shop through them, then please know that I could make a small commission if you shop through them. The other links in the description box are going to be links to reviews, swatches, looks I've done, etc., because I have a lot of content with these up already. So if you're interested in looking into these palettes a little bit more, then you definitely can. Let's start with something small, and I could have shown you both of these because I have two of the Glossier monochromes. These are some really good eyeshadow, I think, for people with fair skin. If you have fair skin, you'll probably recognize the struggle of everything turning super duper dark the minute you put it on. And that's where all of my recommendations here come from. I feel these all look great and distinct, and the shades don't like muddy up or blur together because on your skin tone there's just too much of a contrast and everything just disappears. That's usually what happens for me when I'm wearing super dark things like I'm wearing today. So something light and easy to blend is definitely where it's at for me if you have fair skin. And the Glossier monochromes just do that. I love Mist. I also love the first one I bought, which is called Jute. And I definitely think that this is about as fair skin friendly as it gets. They also do a lot of warm tones in this range. So if you love warm tones, this range can definitely see you through as well. I'm just holding up this one. It has a matte, a shimmer, and a metallic shade, which is incredibly stunning. Glossier is, of course, known for doing the no makeup look. That's what they're good at. So this is not going to be like boom pigment, I need to blend for days. This is buildable, blendable eyeshadow that's going to look very natural on for sure. And if you have fair skin, a shade like Jute, or also the other one I have, Mist, is really good at creating that haze of color, adding a little bit of definition, but without it looking too much. A palette that I cannot leave out of this list ever since I've tried it earlier in the year is this guy. This is the Makeup by Mario Ethereal Ice palette. I bought it towards the end of 2023 after it came back in stock, and I tried it earlier in the year, and I was so happy I tried it. This eyeshadow formula is something else, let me tell you. It is definitely something that's a bit more unique than anything else I've ever tried. So I would like to try some more Makeup by Mario eyeshadow, but so far none of his color stories have really sparked my interest. But this is so good for fair skin because it does go light and deep, but nothing is so overly saturated that you can no longer work with it. It's incredibly blendable, easy to build up, and you get a range of undertones in here. So no matter your skin's undertone, these shades will do something for you. These may look like they're red, but on me they pull a little bit more pinky tone because it very much highlights that cooler undertone that I do have. The peach is really pretty. The shimmers in here are really pretty. You do get something that is a little bit more cool tone, but you can go super warm with this as well. This just has a really good mix of shades for only a 12 pen palette, and it's definitely a formula that I want to try more of. It's just incredibly unique in terms of what it does. It may not look very exciting in the pan, but trust me, if you've never tried this before, I definitely think this is one of the best releases, especially for people with fair skin tones. But just because we have fair skin doesn't mean that we don't like a bit of color. And I think one of the best palettes I've tried in the past year that is more colorful leaning, but that is going to be working really good for people with lighter skin tones, is the Lands of Enchantment by Ensley Rain. This is essentially a blue, green, purple palette, but it goes super duper light because it has these pastels in. So these rows are pastels, then we get some midtones, and we do get some dark shades that are really deep and saturated, including some shimmers. But because this has such a wide variety and such a good gradient from light to dark, it can be really workable. Those deep shades, deepening up shades, liner, lower lash line, they can still work for you. And because everything in here has a perfect cool undertone as well, if you have fair skin with a cool undertone, this color story is going to highlight your best features. Especially if you're a summer, like in terms of color analysis, I think a palette like this can be really nice for you. Another great cooler toned eyeshadow palette that I've tried in the past year is this guy. This is the Ghost Face Lives from Glamlight, and this palette made me fall back in love with Glamlight eyeshadow. I didn't love the first thing I ever tried from them, but then I tried this and it's just really, really good. It again has a really nice range from going very light to very deep, but the deep shades don't overpower this palette. Very often I find with some palettes that I've tried in the past that some people say are good for cooler undertones, some of the medium to dark tones are already so dark on me that I don't get a distinct look. But I feel that this one works really well. And the reason why it works is because it has enough crease shades that can really see you through. I was trying to point at this. Like all of these, like they just work. And therefore I feel that you'd have enough to play with the darker tones as well as with the crease shades. I mean, it's just light enough. The shimmers go light enough as well. Like very often, if things look a little bit deeper, then sometimes the shimmers can be the problem where they are just too deep and too stark, and therefore you also lose the dimension in your eyeshadow looks. And I just feel this has a really good blend of things that are super light versus things that have more depth to allow that to work. And this is essentially a gray color story. It's essentially going from light to dark in terms of gray tones and giving you gray tones with different undertones. Be it a bit more brown leaning, making taupe, or having it be a bit more blue or purple, you just get every rendition of a gray you could ever want without it being boring. There is one palette in the list today that has been discontinued, but this is a placeholder for this brand. Because if there is a brand that does really good color stories for fair-skinned people, it's Glam Shop. They're a Polish indie brand, so for me in Europe, it's super easy for me to get them. And this is the cashmere. And they do things like this regularly. So even though you can no longer get this, I'm sure they'll come out with a color story that can do what this palette does and still be available from the brand. All of their eyeshadow palettes are limited edition. That's why this is discontinued. But this was recommended to me by one of my subscribers, and I don't regret my purchase at all. This again, super light. There is enough depth. There is a little bit of warmth here with those yellows, but for the most part, it's a very neutral tone palette. We get interesting shimmers. They are very impactful. Their palettes always have a good mix of like mattes and shimmers and different textures, and they're not that expensive. This larger palette, I think, was like 35 euros, but their 9 pans retail for around 20 euros, which for an indie brand, I think is really reasonable because something like the Ensley Rain retails for close to 100 euros for me, so that's definitely up there in price, and I appreciate that Glam Shop is still quite affordable. Also quite affordable, and I think very much slept on by most people in the Western makeup world, are K-Beauty shadows. I'm holding up two of my favorites that I think are really, really good, especially if you like that light wash of color and you have fair skin. K-Beauty is very much known for doing that wash of color, very similar to the Glossier one I showed you at the start. And the Romand Better Than palettes are some of my favorites out of all of the K-Beauty stuff I've tried. I definitely want to try some more brands because I feel I've just only started dipping my toes into what K-Beauty has to offer. But so far, Romand and also Clio, I really, really enjoy for their eyeshadow. The one that I tried last year that I really enjoyed was this. This is the Dreamy Lilac Garden, and you can just see how light this is, but it still has a gradient. So it's not super saturated and super dark, but you definitely get options, and it's just so, so beautiful for that effortless makeup look that just sees you through everything. But the other one I have from the brand, so this is like an honorable mention you could say, and I tried it this year, is the Dusty Fog Garden. And K-Beauty doesn't do a lot of good cool tones, but this is definitely cooler toned leaning. And especially compared to other things that K-Beauty brands do that I have tried, I think this is a really nice one. These mattes are super blendable, super easy to use. You can use any other shimmer. If you have like a one and done shadow lying about, this will pair with it really nicely. In the top row, you get a couple of like dusty purple things and things that pull a bit more brown. And then the bottom row is a little bit more gray leaning. So you get some different colors in here as well. And it's all matte, which I know some people really enjoy. I'm usually not a matte girly because I tend to just prefer shimmers over mattes. But I do really appreciate this one. This is the best matte palette I've tried in recent years. And speaking of Asian beauty, but then being more like westernized, you can say, I definitely feel that's one of the things that hurts a lot of K-beauty or Asian beauty brands, is that it's very much tailored towards the beauty trends of the Asian continent, you could say, which is very often different from what we in like Western countries are looking for. But I feel a brand that really nicely bridges that gap between like East meet West, you could say, is Kaleidos. And I have two of their palettes here that I think are just perfect if you have fair skin. I think the best one they've come out with is Venus Trap. It is more cooler tone because that's what I tend to prefer. But you get these like taupe brown leaning things with this like soft pinky lilac and an amazing shimmer that just looks absolutely stunning. It just looks really, really pretty. And the other one I have here is Glowing Iris. And they also do some colorful things in these 4 pans. And I definitely think that this, even though it's more colorful and bright and perhaps a bit punchy, if you have fair skin, of course, a bright, colorful thing can also be really fun. So I definitely think that this palette is really perfect for that. But I think a brand that I really discovered in like the past year or two that I just love, and they do some really good things that I think can work for any skin tone, and it's Gloss Gods. This is my favorite that I tried this year. This is the Gal on Jupiter because it's a perfect cool tone palette in my brain. It's just really, really stunning. They do some really interesting things. Again, not super duper expensive. You get 5 mattes, 8 shimmers. Can I count? No, 7 shimmers and 5 mattes. I can't count. Really beautiful shimmers. This is more of a holochrome kind of shade. Super duper pretty and interesting. And I just really rate their palettes really highly. I now have 7 of them. So no matter which one you try, really, I think can work. The new Let's Get Nude is really stunning too if you like more warm tones. I love the new Neutrals remix. That's my original favorite, but I really enjoy this one too. I already showed you Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes, but I think the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude is quite similar to it. This just gives you more options, and I feel this is a bit more neutral. I feel like the Makeup by Mario perhaps has a little bit more warm tones in there than this one does. This, in terms of like a true neutral palette, works so well for me. And look at how fair this is. It's so light. And that's something that Natasha Denona does a lot. Like, Natasha Denona is the queen of lighter palettes, I feel. So especially if you have fair skin, check out Natasha Denona if you haven't yet, because they do really stunning things. This is the only thing that's more warm toned. So on me, these pull a bit more pinky, but I think if you have a true cool tone, it could be, a cool undertone. These could pull actual peach and look a bit orange on you. That can be a look, depending on what you prefer. But for me, these two are the only true warmer tone things, and everything else is pretty much a cooler tone as well. But I feel that this really hits me like smack in the middle neutral. And for me, this is the best Natasha Denona palette that has been released. And I really enjoy this color story so much. If it was between the Makeup by Mario and the Natasha Denona, I think I would go Natasha Denona over the Makeup by Mario. Just because I feel it's got more options for me personally. But the difference is very slight. And then finally, this month I'm also doing a giveaway, and this is my copy of this palette, but I have a brand new untouched one that I'm giving away in this month's video. And this is a perfect palette if you have fair skin as well. It's the Ghost Town USA from Nomad. And they do a really lovely formula as well, where a lot of indie brands, like what I'm wearing today on my eyes, this is Klarity, and it was like boom, kapow, pigment in your face, and you need to blend to get it right. Nomad, I feel, is the only indie brand I've tried in years that has a more blendable formula where it's a little bit more lighter weight and it's not like boom kapow pigment like straight away, which if you like that kind of thing, there's nothing wrong with it. I just prefer to have this more blendable, buildable shadow, so it allows me to work in small steps rather than like having to like blend things out with brushes and like doing all that. Just makes it a little easier to use, I find. And the Gosang USA is so pretty. Like nothing, like this is quite saturated, but it shears out beautifully, beautifully. You do get some like warmer neutral tones here. This is a little bit more like green, grungy vibes. It's just really, really stunning, but it's still very light. So I think this is like if you want grungy, but it scares you because it looks too dark and it looks like a little over the top for you sometimes, this can be a beautiful palette. It's soft, it's blendable, it's got pretty shimmers, and it has some really stunning colors in too. And this palette is currently unavailable by Nomad, but as I said, you can win it in my giveaway, but they will be bringing this back for this year's Halloween. So there you have it. Those are my top 10 favorite palettes for people with fair skin tones. I really hope you enjoyed watching this video today. So if you're looking for more content with these palettes, such as swatches and looks I've done, then you can find those links in the description box down below. I make loads of content with my palettes every single month already, so I would like to refer you to that so that you can find all the information you need in one spot. So thank you so very much for joining me here today. Thumbs up the video if you liked it, and join me again tomorrow for a new video all about eyeshadow palettes, or a palette I already do regularly anyway, because this month I'm posting videos every single day. Normally I post 4 times a week, so subscribe if you want to stay tuned for more, and then I hope to see you in my next one. Bye-bye!